Hello, this is Iron Bill back again with another video. This video is following quickly on the heels of something I posted this morning. And upon reflection on that, I wanted to actually flesh out uh, my feelings on the issue and maybe open a discussion. And please feel free to comment below after viewing this. I'm sure there'll be lots of strong views on either side of the topic. And I guess I want to open that by saying that, I don't think there's a right or wrong to any of this. I think there's truth. And that truth may vary depending upon your viewpoint. I mean, all we can ever do is relate directly our own experiences and um, then use that to question whether or not, on the whole, this is healthy for the game or not. And that's the approach I try to take with this. I certainly don't try to villainize one side over the other. I don't think that's fair. I think we all have our own reasons for playing this game and our own goals in doing so. So I guess I just kind of want to open up that can of worms a little bit and maybe brainstorm how we could possibly have a game that everyone wants to play. And I really do think that's the core issue. Because I think it goes without argument, and I've stated this in the discussions, and I think a few others have as well, that the game's best when a lot of people are playing. So really, my focus would then therefore be how, in a selfish sense, how do I make my gameplay better by getting more people in the game? So what would do that is the basis of the discussion. So to open, current matchmaking lobby balance situation is not good. And based on anyone that I'm speaking to and reactions in the comment section, it's clear that, it's changed for the worse. Now, what has changed that is, open to discussion. Is it that the player base is really low? Well, I don't have the numbers, so I can't say. I suspect that's in part true. And I will say from a PvE side of things, it's a slow period again. These seasons and episodes and whatever, it's really not doing what Bungie said it would do. I mean, honestly, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, I could not play at all for the rest of this and play the last week on my characters. And I have 2 accounts, and I could play all of that out in 1 week, and I wouldn't have missed a thing. And that kind of says something, on the PvE side of things. So, that is going to drag down the population somewhat, obviously, because you're going to have people that are a mix of PvE and PvP. And if things are kind of stale on both sides of the game, people are going to do other things. And there are other good games to play right now. And some games have just come out that are popular. I don't really need to rattle off a list. We all know they're out there. So player population certainly probably has something to do with the current situation with how the game feels. Whether or not that's the reason why Bungie decided to make a change in the last couple of weeks by widening the parameters of their searches to open it up. So because what had been happening, just in case you don't know, is Bungie had somewhat of an outlier protection program going on. And this was something that True Vanguard, another content creator, had been talking about for some time, and something in which I agree. His concept was that if you ranked all players from 1 to 10, it should be a system where 10 should never see 1s or 2s in their lobbies. They just shouldn't, because the skill gap between them is so vast that there's no way that a lobby of 1s and 2s would have any chance of existing in that lobby with 10s in there. It's not going to work, at least under that system. And so the idea was you had a range. You could slide up. So like if you're a 1, you could see up to 8s. If you were 10, you could see 3s or above. And that was basically his concept in a nutshell. Now, whether those numbers are exactly what he said or not, or whether that's exactly what Bungie did, that's neither here nor there. There was some form of that system in place. Well, apparently queue times had gotten pretty large or pretty long for some players. And, it got to the place where they decided that they had to do something about that. And they watch their numbers. And if their numbers start to fall, they have to make guesses about why that is. They read their numbers and they interpret it as they will. Samuel Clemens said there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. And that just goes to say that you can interpret data any way you want to, and you can do that with the best intent. You can do that with ill intent. I think Bungie probably, in their own business interest, are trying to do this in the best possible way. But I don't think what they've done is done anything to stem the bleeding, and I think if anything, it's accelerated it. So, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about matches that basically are blowouts. If I do 10 matches, it'll be 8 to 10 blowouts. And I'm usually on the losing side, but occasionally be on the winning side, but they're all blowouts. And, if that's the play experience I can expect to have from my end of the spectrum, there's not a lot of reason for me to invest in it, because philosophically, I don't want to be in blowout matches. I want to be in matches where both sides have maybe not an equal chance to win, but have some chance to win. And you can get into some of the search models, online, that will tell you what the percentage of chance that one team had to win over another. And if you actually look at that on your play, and I don't have a list of those right now, maybe another day I'll do that. It'll appall you to find out how often, one side or the other had absolutely no chance to win the match, and they're just none. It's usually 85-15. And I see that a lot in trials. So if I look at trials reports or something like that, and I look at the percentage of the possibility of a win, I realize just, how behind the eight ball I'm actually at in playing trials. And that's okay with trials, because trials is a competitive mode. I don't go in with a match-made team. I go solo, and I'm a bad player. What do I expect? I'm okay with that. We're talking about quick play here. And that's where I want to move on to the next point. What is the purpose of quick play? Well, it depends on who you talk to. Some people on the higher end will tell you that quick play doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter what you do in quick play. So you should go there and just try stuff out and be able to relax and whatever. But we all know the reality is nobody likes to get stomped. And if you go in there and experiment with anything, there's a chance you get stomped. And so you get stomped enough times and you stop experimenting and you go to meta. And you just lock it down until you get things under control. We all do that. I try to experiment a little bit. I'm willing to take some L's and whatever and get thumped. But if I feel like I'm losing my confidence because I'm just getting thumped and I'm not centered anymore, you better believe I'm going to go back to my tried and true loadouts and try to get things under control. But you have the high-end players saying quick play doesn't matter, and then you have the low-end players. That's all they've got. They don't have the option to go play competitive or trials, because they're going to get kicked in the teeth the whole time they're in those things. That's kind of what you're dealing with here. And I think oftentimes people have an inability to put themselves in the shoes of another person and try to see what they're seeing, and people will tell you what they're seeing. It's just you have to accept whether what they're seeing is a true perception, or whether it is something clouded by some judgment. Either way, it's what they believe. There's no reason to believe that somebody's not telling you the truth. I'm rambling here a little bit, but I'll get to it. What it comes down to then is, if you accept that the top end players may view this as a place to just play around, and they feel like they should be able to relax, and they should be able to go in and play any loadout and not have to worry about getting stomped. Well, that means that somebody on the low end has to be in that lobby. Because if they're playing against their peers, people on their own or similar levels, they're not going to be able to do that, because those other players are going to do what I said. If they're losing, they're going to lock down. They're going to go to meta. And so inevitably, it creeps back up to a semi-competitive mode. And the only way to guarantee that the top-end players don't have to play like that all the time is to feed them the low-end players. Okay, that's the only way. Now, the problem with that is, of course, then you are denying the low-end players any sort of relaxed time to play. It's always sweaty on the low end. And I see this. And I've been that guy a lot. Every single match is a sweat fest. Every single time. And even the top players will tell you they don't want to sweat every match. Well, if the price for that is the low-end players have to sweat all the time, why would the low-end player want to play the game? If they're always going to be, basically kicked, around, what's in it for them? What is the gain? And that leads you to an even bigger issue then. If it was equally distributed between top and low end players, and it is not, but if it were, it might be okay to say we're going to favor one side over the other. But the problem is there are far more low end players than there are top end players. And the top end players, some of them might be pure, and certainly not all of them, but some of them may say, hey, man, just suck it up, get good, whatever. You know the old phrase. And, not realizing that's kind of a self-defeating attitude, because you run the lower end players out and they say, good, they're gone. Well, yeah, good, they're gone. And now what are you going to have to do every match? You're going to have to get in there and sweat every single match. Is that healthy for the game? You always want to ask that question. Is that healthy for the game? Because if you drive numbers out, it's bad for everybody. If you drive numbers up, it's good for everybody. That's the mantra. Okay, so the question then is, can a balance be found that benefits all? I honestly don't know. I think Bungie doesn't know this. I think that they can gen some excitement by having new weapons and rewards, but that only takes it so far, because once those weapons and rewards are acquired, people tend to drop off again. If the core play experience is not fun enough to do on its own, awards will only take you so far. It will be something that you'll have to keep refreshing. Or it's just not going to work. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I understand, and this has to be addressed too. Okay, even as the lower end player doesn't want to get stomped every match, the high end player doesn't want to have to connect with people across the planet in 10 and 15 minute queue times and disconnections and phantom bullets and the whole thing. I mean, that is a very valid thing to be concerned about. I mean, for a low end player, it's easy to say things like, well, the top end players just don't want to play each other. I think there is some truth in that. I mean, they don't want to do it all the time. I think they want to be able to relax and play against lower talent. I mean, and even some have the perception that they earn the right to go in and stomp lower players. And you know what? Honestly, there's some truth to that. And I'm willing to play my part in that and be that guy that gets beaten by, a better player. I don't have a problem with that. It's when it gets to the place where all I'm facing are people so far ahead of me, I have no chance against them, and there's nothing I can learn from it because it all happens too fast. That's when I kind of flip to the other side. So the top end players have very legitimate concerns. The low end players have very legitimate concerns. Can you create a system where both sides of the extreme get what they want? Because if they do, the middle will just kind of find its own way. Okay, I mean, it'll be a situation where no one gets completely everything they want, but everyone will get enough. I mean, I think that's the target. If you can do that, I think you're successful. And the classic ways these issues are handled are between skill-based matchmaking and connection-based matchmaking, which is what this is right here. Okay, so it's the old argument. Skill-based matchmaking means that matchmaking prioritizes finding matches where people are on your level, within a certain delta. That might be 3 or 4 ranks, up or down. And obviously, the weaker a player you are, the more people you'll draw from, and the faster your queue times will be. So if you're on the bottom end of the scale, hey, matches happen very quickly, and they're fair and enjoyable. You may not be the top fragger in your lobby, but you're not going to be the 0.2 every single match who's just getting spawn trapped by a squad of 3 or 4 in your lobby, and then it becomes a playable and enjoyable experience. On the other hand, the people on the high end are now, especially like if you're in that 1 to 5%, and I've got a couple of friends that are in that top 5%. Your queue times are going to take a lot longer. Your connections are not going to be very good, when you do get connected, and you're going to be playing people across the planet. I mean, it's just a bad situation for them, and every single match is going to be a sweat fest, every single one. Okay, I don't want that for them either. I don't think that's a great thing. Okay, so then you go to connection-based matchmaking. So, well, before I do that, To answer the question, why is skill-based matchmaking good? Well, it guarantees that the matches will at least give an equal chance to both sides to win a match. The other thing is it engages the low-end players, of which the population is much greater, so you have more people playing. Okay, so from Bungie's end, that actually is a good thing. And if you have new players that want to come in and play PvP, it's the friendliest way to break them in. You know, they're not just thrown into this really ability heavy mode where if you don't have yourself modded out properly, you forget the guns. I mean, you're still going to be fighting, you know, somebody who's very experienced in using the full kit, and you're not going to have much of a chance. So, skill-based matchmaking allows newer players to be able to come in and actually engage in the game in a way where they have a chance for success. That's the good thing. The bad thing, obviously, is that the high-end players have to pay the cost. Their play experience suffers. And what's bad about it, and it's not on here, but I'm going to say it anyway, for that end of it is you are punishing the most engaged population you have, and that is the high-end players. Obviously, these are the most engaged players. They are the most loyal players to the mode, and you're beating them up, you know, and that's not good. Connection-based matchmaking, why is it good? Well, no matter what match you're in, the connection will be good. That means that you won't have phantom bullets, you won't have a lot of lag or warping or whatever. I mean, it will be the best possible connection experience you can get. You'll have faster queue times. You will get your matches. Who benefits the most from this? Obviously, the high-end players, because in order to get connection-based matchmaking, you simply draw from the pool of players nearest to you in terms of connection. It could be a geographical thing. It just could be a connection issue. But no matter, you're going to have quality matches and probably a much easier time because it's going to have to include people who are several layers beneath you in terms of the ranking. And for that reason, you're going to see the top end players love and espouse that mode. And you are rewarding your most engaged players by giving them pools of people who are easy to kill. And so they're going to be able to go in and frag out and use whatever they want and you know, just be able to toy with the enemy in ways that they never could do when they have to play only people on their own level. Now, we could argue whether that's good or bad, but we can't argue that that's true. It is true. You know, that it's just an obvious thing. Who suffers the most? Obviously the low end players, because they are going to be matched consistently with higher end people who are just going to frag out on them. And it's going to feel like a very punishing experience. And remember, these are the less engaged people. So how long is it before they realize that it's pointless and that they don't need to be in that anymore? And then the gain that the high end players see in CBMM very quickly diminishes as the player population diminishes. And we've seen this cycle over the last 10 years. How many times? Bungie swings back and forth between SBMM and CBMM for that reason, because their player population suffers when they go purely one way or the other. Under skill-based matchmaking, the high-end players suffer. Under connection-based matchmaking, the low-end players suffer. Either way, you lose people. You know, so that's why they tried to do the outlier protection, because what it did is it still offered the possibility that there would be good matches in terms of connection, but diminished the impact of skill-based matchmaking so that you still had a pool of players with which, if you're on the high end, you could relax and play. But on the low end, it wasn't so bad that you were just getting clubbed out of your mind, you know, over and over. So in some ways, when they were doing this earlier, for me, where I'm at, which I'm probably a 3 out of 10 player, it actually was okay. I mean, I was all right with it. You know, I had good matches and bad matches. It was okay, but I found a way to survive in the ecosystem. Well, you know, until recently. And then I think, you know, whatever happened, it happened, and things did change. Which is better for the game? My answer to that is neither. I don't think pure one way or the other is the way to go ever. It's anything that excessively punishes one side over the other is a bad thing. And I say that as a lower end player. I mean, I don't want the high end players to suffer. I don't want that. I want them to be rewarded for being engaged and loving that game mode. I want them rewarded for that. I wish I was that guy, but I'm not. I never will be, and that's okay. Their play is just as valuable as mine, I guess, is what I'm saying. Is the outlier protection concept sound? I think it is. I think I've already talked about advantages and disadvantages of it to a certain extent. You are setting an attainable range, but I will add this: as a former teacher, career teacher, retired, I will tell you that the best way to motivate a student is to give attainable success. And if you are simply throwing something harder and harder and harder on a person before they're ready for it, there comes a point when the frustration level is such that they cannot see a path to success. And when that happens, they disengage. That's human nature. And that's not just students, that's human beings. And I was a coach as well, all the way from little kids to senior adults. And I can tell you it never changes. That's how we're wired. So in this game mode, if we create an environment that is difficult, but not so difficult that success is impossible, that's good. That is going to motivate the greatest number of people possible. Yeah, it will disengage a few. Okay, but the greatest number of people possible can be engaged because they can see a path to success if they'll actually make a plan and go for it. You're going to turn some people off, but you'll probably, on the whole, keep a lot more people. So that's why I think outlier protection concept is actually good. There is a risk, though, that if you don't get those ranges right, that you're going to knock some people out. And this has all been an experiment. And I don't know that Bungie has given it enough time to see if they've actually got that tweaked in the right way. But there is a mitigating factor, and that is the snake draft. The snake draft, if you don't know how it works, is where you it's like in grade school when you pick teams to play basketball, kickball, or whatever. You line all the students up, and you have two people come out, and then the first person picks, and the second person picks, and the third person, the first person picks again, and you go back and forth. And presumably, what happens is each of them picks the person they perceive is the best in helping them win the game. Okay, back and forth. And of the remaining people, as you draw, you always pick the next person you think gives you the greatest chance. And what that does is it balances out the talent on both sides of the team. Now, no one wants to be the last person picked, but we don't get to see this in the background. It all happens in the background, so no feelings are hurt. And personally, I know I'm probably the last person picked on any team. I know that. It's okay. So that's how it's supposed to work. Does it work? And emphatically, I can say no. The current snake draft does not work. Because there are too many times when I go into a lobby and I will see a 6 KD, a 12 KD, an 18 KD, all on the same team. And then you got a bunch of negatives on my team. Okay. And we're talking like 0.2, 0.3. It's not even close. I mean, obviously, snake draft is not working. Now, Bungie says this is because top-end players are quitting at record numbers. That what they're doing is apparently, if you ever watch a streamer do trials, they'll look up the players they're facing and they'll know before you even land who you're facing. And I think that this must be what's happening. Top-end players are looking at their lobby and saying, nope, not going into that. I'm on the wrong team. And whether they do it right after they land or they do it, before they land or whatever, I don't know. I never get too involved in looking people up. Doesn't matter to me. I play who I play. But I play with people who do look people up, and I know that it happens. And so if those people leave, and this is Bungie's argument, I think it's sound, how do you replace that player? If they were the anchor of your team, how do you replace the anchor of your team? Well, you typically don't. What you're going to get is somebody much lesser. And now the whole blowout thing snowballs. So if people quit all the time, and they are, and it's the better players quitting. That's the thing that blows my mind. It's the better players quitting. Then, how do you have a chance to make this system successful? The impact on the current model is, of course, blowouts after blowout after blowout after blowout after blowout, and that is it's untenable. All that really boils down to, I guess, for all of us is my play experience acceptable? And your next question is it fun? And third question is, can it be improved? Um, I can tell you my truth is that it's not acceptable. I don't see any way that it's going to improve in the short term. And, I'm just not very hopeful of the whole thing at the moment. And it's too bad because I was enjoying PvP. I mean, it's something that I couldn't have said a year ago. I've been enjoying PvP for a lot of reasons, and a lot of that has to do with the support of the channel. And folks actually giving me tips on how to get better, and I think that I was. But now it feels like I've never played the game, and that's really very disheartening. So, the Bungie's PvP conundrum: who do they make happy? And this is as the same as it ever was, as David Byrne says, Talking Heads, same as it ever was. How do you make everybody happy? Well, you can't. And this is also something that I want to point out, and my friends and I talk about a lot. PvP, by its nature, especially like if you get into competitive modes, it's not fair. Okay, it's never fair. And it can't be made perfectly fair. Bungie tried perfectly fair at the start of Destiny 2 by giving us double primaries and four-man teams and the whole thing, and really took the abilities pretty much out of the game and made it just pure gunplay. And guess what? People hated it. They didn't want to play that anymore. Almost killed the game. So I think you have to accept that some people are going to be better at leveraging abilities in their kits and their weapons than others. You just have to accept that. And that means if you're matched against them, it's not a fair match. If nothing else I've said up to this point has sunk in, we'll let this sink in. And that is that I don't think it's reasonable to ask for completely fair matches. I don't think that's what's going to ever happen. But selling that to people is a hard sell. I think you can give people a reasonable chance to win, or at least a reasonable chance to be successful, even if their team doesn't win. Personally, I don't care about wins or losses. What I care about is whether or not I can effectively do anything in the game without just being a target running around, a bot. I don't want to be a bot. I am a bot. I don't want to be a bot, but I am. And so I accept that I'm going to lose more than I'm going to win. I'm okay with that, okay? But Bungie has to create a system where it feels rewarding for me to play somewhere. Why else would I engage? If I can't find some kind of a victory in it, I only died 50 times, I mean, that's not the kind of thing that you want to have to, hang on to. That's not fun. So, one of their conundrums is there are too many disparate concerns. And that is, and I've talked a lot about that in this video, on the top end and the low end, how, they both sides approach this game from a different direction and with different goals in mind. And how do you create an all-inclusive game that takes all that into consideration? Well, you have to make compromises. I mean, you just do. And you're not going to make a game that everyone's going to like. And I've talked about that a lot too, and that this is not the game mode for me. And if it's not, it's not. If the bulk of the people enjoy it, so be it. That's what it should be. If the bulk of the people who are engaged, who want to do this and enjoy playing it, want it to be a particular way, and that's the healthiest numbers that Bungie can get, then that's the way it should be. So, too many variables to weigh. Yeah, I mean, because it's not just what Bungie attempts to do, it's also how people react to it. And that's the impact of human nature in matchmaking. If people are going to quit out if they don't see that they're going to win, if that's what's happening with the high-end players, they say, nope, not going to go in there. I don't want to sweat so hard, and we're going to lose anyway. If that's how they approach it, it doesn't matter what matchmaking you put in place. You know that. I mean, it's going to come down to people are just going to have to be willing to take a loss once in a while and, occasionally take a beating. And I think we're all willing to do that. It just shouldn't be that we're taking a beating every single time. I mean, I think that's common sense. I'm not looking for fair, okay? I'm looking for reasonable. I'm looking for lobby balancing that does not result in complete blowouts. You know, losing 100 to 150 in a control match, perfectly acceptable. At least you were getting something done. That might just be that they had better map control than you did, but you know, it wasn't like the whole match was spent, you know, with the other team so good that they could spread out over the whole map and just lock down areas with single players so that you spawn in and you die. And I cannot tell you how many times I get into matches like that now, where the enemy is everywhere because they have absolutely no fear of the opposing team because they're so much better than all the players on the other side. They are just going to just rack up the kill counts. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just not going to do that anymore. I maybe small of me, but I'm not. I'm just not. So anyway, that's personal. In summary, Bungie has a big problem, you know, and their content right now is not super engaging. I think that weapon balancing, unfortunately, is in a pretty good place. I actually don't have a problem with that. It's not like one gun rules. I mean, hand cannons are kind of oppressive at times, but they can be countered. I mean, it's not like it's an impossible thing. And if me as a 3 can see that, then I think most players, excuse me, would probably agree with that. But the other stuff, I don't know. I think that if things don't change real soon, it's going to go back to the few people who are playing that are going to be just sweating every single match, no matter what your skill level is. Eventually, it gets to that point. I mean, you just have, you know, reduction after reduction after reduction, and pretty soon the top end isn't going to be able to match with anyone but the top end. It's happened before. It's happening again. You know, we're headed that direction and quickly. I just can't believe how quickly it snowballed. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I was enjoying PvP. Today, I hate it. You know, I mean, I hate it again. I don't have any desire to play it at all. So, and I'll be honest, I was pretty engaged. I mean, it was mostly what I was doing there for a while. So, actually working towards goals and improving and what have you. And now I'm just completely disillusioned with it again. So, that's my truth, you know, as they say. So, that may not be what you're seeing. And I honestly, I hope that the people who are watching this are enjoying this on some level. I don't want people to suffer. I don't benefit from that. All I can do is tell Bungie that I'm unhappy by not playing it. I just won't engage in it. And if enough numbers drop, then they will actually make an earnest search to do something to fix it. I think the game absolutely has to have PvP to survive. Even if they don't prioritize it, they better do something with it, because right now it's a mess. So I'm going to stop with that. This has been going on for over 30 minutes, which is an extremely long video for me, but I felt like this was a pretty weighty topic. And if you made it this far, congratulations. You have a high endurance for rambling old men. And I'm just the drunk uncle sitting on a porch in my rocker, just railing at the wind. So anyway, no, hopefully not. Hopefully not. So anyway, I want to thank you for watching all this. Please put whatever thoughts and comments you have below, and let's talk about it. So this is Iron Bill thanking you for watching and signing out.